I'll call the session to order. May ano ba? Suspended ba o adjourn pala tayo, no? May I request our brother MP Faiz Alauddin to lead us in the invocation.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقال ربكم ادعوني أستجب الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين صراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من الهم والحزن والغم والمكرم والبخل والعجز والكسل وغلبة الدين سمة الأعداء يا الله يا رب العالمين ربنا تقبل منا دعاءنا إنك أنت وتب علينا إنك التواب وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله.
Kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Second, please call the roll.
The Honorables Abbas Ahmad,
Present.
Abbas Harun, Abbas Zulkarnain,
Present.
Abbas Basit Sarip, Abu Mujib,
Present.
Adyong Jaur Rahman Alonto, Ahang Abdullah, Alamia Laisa,
Present.
Alauddin Faiz, Ali Ibrahim, Ali Lanang Jr., Ali Edi Mapag, Alil Cesar, Ambuluto Suarto,
Present.
Ampatuan Baintan, Anayatin Susana, Asmawil Muslima, Balidong Ali Pangalian, Bara Hamid Aminudi, Basman Anna Tarhata,
Present.
Burahan Abraham, Kandaw Bay Maleha,
Present.
Nandamun Latif Maysara, Diamla Musa, Dipatuan Saprula, Ibrahim Ahod, Ismail Haji Abdulaziz, Gayak Abdullah,
Present.
Gera Edward, Hasim Abdullah,
Present.
Hasan Hatimin,
Present.
Iqbal Muhager, Ismail Rasul, Yajuri Raisa,
Present.
Jakilan Muslimin,
Present.
Karon Bainon, Lidasan Mussolini, Loong Don Mustafa, Lorena Jose Rebani, Makako Abdurauf, Makapaar Abdullah, Makaraya Jamel, Makasalong Marjani, Mahmuda Dato Kadafe,
Present. Present.
Mantawil Malik,
Present.
Mastura Dato Takaw, Mastura Siti Sara, Mawali Lamil Bahar, Mitimbang Dato Mid Pantaw, Mitmog Rasul,
Present.
Mujahid Abdul Muhmin,
Present.
Munyos Hussein, Oranon Suaib,
Present.
Akasa Mabayda, Pak Abdul Wahab, Pangandaman Nabila Margarita,
Present.
Ramos Diabila, Rimbang Edrisa Nasir, Zakar Modayaw, Zalendab Said, Dali Al-Sheikh, Saliga Romeo, Dalik Ali, Sangki Ali, Sani Punduma,
Present.
Satar Al-Sad,
Present.
Sema Omar Yaser,
Present.
Sema Romeo, Sheikh Said, Silongan Aida,
Present.
Sulaiman Ali,
Present. Aida.
Tulay Manali. Tago Paisalin.
Present. Present. Present.
Tan Nabil.
Present.
Udja Sahi. Ulama Melanio. Usman Asfar. Yakov Muhammad. UAK Narciso.
Secretary General.
Mr. Speaker, as a result of the roll call, out of the 78 members of the PTA Parliament, 18 MPs physically responded to the call and 34 MPs responded via Zoom. Mr. Speaker, we have a total of 52, both physical and virtual. We therefore certify, Mr. Speaker, that there is presence of quorum. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
With the certification of the presence of a quorum, we can now proceed to transact business. Majority Leader.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Speaker Ali Pangaliang Balindong, Honorable Presiding Officer, Deputy Speaker Attorney Nabil Tan, members of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority Parliament, staff of the MPs, Secretariat. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Before we proceed, Mr. Speaker, I would like to move to amend the order of business to include PTA proposed resolution number 500. Mr. Speaker. So I move.
Sandali, naka-session ako. I'm presiding.
Mr. Speaker, I move to amend the order of business to include proposed resolution number 500.
There's a motion to amend the order of business to include proposed resolution 500. Is there any second? Is there any objection? Chair hears none. Same is by approved.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we are now on item number 6, reading and approval of journal of the previous session. Mr. Speaker, I move to dispense with the reading of the previous journal, and I further move for the approval of this, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to dispense with the reading and for the approval of the journal of the previous session. Journal number 47, dated December 17, 2020 session. Is there any second?
Second.
Duly seconded. Is there any objection? Chair hears none. Same by approved.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we proceed to item number 7, resolutions. May we request the Secretary General to read the first proposed resolution for today's session, Mr. Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to read the proposed resolution 496.
The Speaker, on proposed resolution number 496 is entitled Resolution Extending the Highest Commendation by the Bangsamoro Parliament to Philippine Olympians Heidelin Diaz, Neste Peticio, Carlo Paalam, and Eumir Marcial for bringing pride and honor to the country during the recently concluded 2020 Summer Olympics in Tokyo, Japan. Authored by the honorable members of the Parliament, Diaw Rahman Alonto Adjung, Raisa Jajuri, Ubaida Pakasam, Ana Tarhata Basman, and A.D. Ali. Co-authored by the honorable members of the Parliament, Jose Lorena Paisalin Tago, Nabil Tan, Susana Anayatin, Romeo Saliga, Nabila Margarita Pangandaman, Titi Sahara Mastura, Musa Kilis Jamla, Maysara Latip, Bainun Karon, Aida Silungan, Omar Yasir Seba, Don Mustafa Luong, and Narciso Silio AK, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I move to treat this as simple resolution be transferred for the business.
There's a
Second.
motion to move proposed resolution
Second.
496 to treat proposed resolution 496 as a simple resolution
Second.
and move for the business of the day. Is there any second? Duly
Second.
seconded. Is there any objection?
Second.
Chair hears none. Same is hereby approved. Next.
Speaker, may we request the Secretary General to read the next proposed resolution?
The Secretary General is directed to read the next proposed resolution 498.
Okay, nag-order ako.
Mr. Speaker, proposed resolution number 498 is entitled Resolution Commemorating the 60th Founding Anniversary of Mindanao State University MSU and commending its invaluable contribution to the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region and its people. Authored by the Honorable Member of the Parliament, Rasul Mitmog Jr. Co-authored by the Honorable Members of the Parliament, Liza Alamia, Suharto Ambuluto, Baintan Adilang Patuan, Rasul Ismail, Don Mustafa A. Luong, and Amil Bahar Mawalid. Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, I move to treat this as simple resolution and be transferred to the business of the day, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to treat this as a simple resolution and transfer to the
Second.
Duly seconded. Is there any objection? There being none, same is hereby approved. To
Proposed
read,
resolution number 500, Mr. Speaker.
we now go to the proposed resolution 500. May I just caution the body first before we go to the title. That is the proper procedure, so that those things mentioned in the body will conform with the title. So last to be amended will be the title. So you flush the body. Okay, please proceed.
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, on approve addendum proposed resolution is proposed resolution number 500. Titled Resolution Commending the Senate of the Republic of the Philippines, its Committee on Local Government, and its Majority Floor Leader for shepherding the process for the enactment of the Senate Bill 2214 and for having the same approved on second reading. Authored by the Honorable Members of the Parliament, Mohagir Iqbal and Raisa Jajuri. Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I move to treat this as simple resolution and be transferred for the business of the day.
There is a motion to treat proposed resolution 500 as simple resolution and transferred to the business for the day. Is there any second? Duly seconded. Is there any objection? Chair hears none. Same is hereby approved.
None.
Mr. Speaker, we proceed. We are now on the item number 8 per stage of bills. May we request the Secretary to read the first proposed bill 97, Mr. Speaker.
Secretariat is directed to read the first proposed bill.
Mr. Speaker, on first stage of bills, we have BTA Parliament Bill number 97 entitled An Act Establishing and Constructing a Level 1 General Hospital with 50-bed capacity in Simway Sultan Kudarat in the province of Maguindanao to be known as the Ghazali Jafar Memorial Hospital and appropriating funds therefore. Authored by the Honorable Member of the Parliament, Saprula Dipatuan. Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, this is a private member bill. Any members of the Parliament would like to signify their interest as a co-author, they just write their name in the papers distributed by the Secretary General, Mr. Speaker.
So those interested may signify their intention to a printed form for those physically present.
Yes, Mr.
And
Speaker.
then for the Zoom, you can type that in the chat box.
Again, may we request the Secretary General to read the next proposed Parliament bill, Mr. Speaker.
The secretariat is directed to read the next proposed bill.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, on this second PTA Parliament Bill number 101, entitled An Act Upgrading the Existing Buluan District Hospital in Maguindanao from its present level 1 with 25 bed capacity into level 2 with 100 bed capacity and appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. Authored by the Honorable Member of the Parliament, Safrula Dipatuan, Mr. Speaker.
Again, Mr. Speaker, this is a private member bill. Any members of the parliament would signify their interest
Mr.
and
Speaker,
May
Mr.
just,
Speaker, Mr. Speaker.
MP Mangudadato, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to recognize.
MP Toy Mangudadato is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is just to inform the chamber that the intention of the good MP Saprula Dipatuan is very noble. However, Mr. Speaker, the title itself, I would like to inform him that meron na po tayong existing bill in relation to the upgrading of the Buluan District Hospital. Where in fact, Mr. Speaker, just recently hold a committee hearing, committee meeting rather, and one of the agenda during the meeting is the schedule of public consultation for the purpose of upgrading the Buluan District Hospital. So may I ask the good Minister Dipatuan, Mr. Speaker, if he will adhere to the proposal of this principal author of bill upgrading the Buluan District Hospital 75 bed capacity into 200 bed capacity, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the concern of MP Mangudadato can be exhausted in the
Later.
committee level, Mr. Speaker. They can discuss on what to do with the proposed bill. They may consolidate with the with the bill of Mangudadato, Mr. Speaker. This is only a first stage of bills, Mr. Speaker. In
Just
the
the
House
first
rules,
stage.
there is no need for discussion, Mr.
Discussion.
Speaker.
And to add to that, I was also present the Committee on Health meeting yesterday or the other day. Minister Sap was mindful of the existing bills filed by on the same subject filed by MP Toy. I think it's best for him to explain that. But what I heard is so that will be archived already.
Yes, Mr.
For
Speaker.
archiving. So let's wait until it's in the committee.
Yes, Mr.
No discussion yet, MP Toy. Noted.
Yes,
Your
thank you, Mr.
observation.
Speaker.
Your observation is noted.
Lastly, Mr. Speaker, just for the record, Mr. Speaker, I hope filing this new bill similar to that existing bill filed already and also scheduled for the public consultation will not hamper the commitment of the Committee on Health to hold the public consultation as agreed by the members of the Committee on Health, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Noted, MP Toy.
Yes,
Majority
Mr.
Leader.
Speaker, we proceed
Thank
to
you,
the
Mr.
second stage of bills, Mr. Speaker. We are on BTA Parliament Bill number 98. The Honorable MP Zap Dipatuan would like to deliver his sponsorship speech on this particular bill. May we respectfully recognize MP Zap.
MP Sap Dipatuan is recognized. Before you proceed, before the Honorable MP Sap Dipatuan will proceed, it is advised that sponsorship should be physically present, but we will give in to MP Sap because he has gone through some health problems, so he cannot be physically present, so still recovering. So proceed, MP Sap.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for being very understanding and allowing me to deliver my sponsorship speech with regards to the with regards to this bill. Thank you also to the majority floor leader and to the other members of this August chamber. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh to all my colleagues who are present during this plenary session, whether physically or virtually. I am honored to sponsor the creation and the establishment of the Ustad Salamat Hashim Memorial Hospital in Barangay Poblacion of Pikit, North Cotabato. My dear colleagues, the reason why I proposed the construction and establishment of this hospital in North Cotabato is that currently there is no hospital present in the 63 barangays that opted to join the BARM when we had the plebiscite on the Bangsamoro Organic Law. In addition, the proposed Ustad Salamat Hashim Memorial Hospital will also serve the municipality of Pagalungan and Dato Montawal in Maguindanao. If you are going to see with regards to the 63 barangays and in addition to the municipalities of Pagalungan and Dato Montawal, more or less more than 200,000 Bangsamoro brothers or sisters and are living in this area without the benefit of having a hospital of their own. And since the Bangsamoro Organic Law has made it a policy that it is one of the major objectives of the establishment of the BARM to establish an integrated healthcare delivery system in the BARM, I believe that our brothers in Pagalungan, Dato Montawal, and the 63 barangays of North Cotabato deserve to have their own hospital. And I am honored to have proposed the name of this new hospital in the name of our late chairman of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, Ustad Salamat Hashim, to immortalize his name as far as the hospital is concerned. Because of this, I am appealing to my colleagues in this chamber to support me in passing the establishment of this hospital so that we will be able to give justice to our brothers in the 63 barangays of North Cotabato and the municipalities of Dato Montawal and Pagalungan in Maguindanao, so that we will be able to address the health needs of our brothers in the said areas, and we will be able to confront the current pandemic in the said areas. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move to refer this BT Parliament Bill number 98 to the Committee on Health, Mr. Speaker.
There's a motion to refer this to the Committee on Health. Any second? Any
Second.
objection? Any objection? Chair hears none. Same is hereby referred to the Committee on Health.
Mr. Speaker, again, we will respectfully recognize MP SAP to deliver his sponsorship speech on BT Parliament Bill number 100, Mr. Speaker.
Yung kanina, 100.
BT,
100 ba? 100?
100, Mr. Speaker.
Bill, BTA Bill number 100.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. May we respectfully recognize MP SAP to deliver his sponsorship speech on this bill, Mr. Speaker.
MP SAP Dipatuan is recognized.
Once again, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and Mr. Majority Floor Leader. I am privileged to sponsor BT Parliament Bill number 100 entitled Anak Upgrading the Existing Datuhalon Sakilan Memorial Hospital in the municipality of Bungao, province of Tawi-Tawi, from its present level with 25 authorized bed capacity into a level 2 100 bed capacity and appropriating funds, therefore, and for other purposes. The Datuhalon Sakilan Memorial Hospital is currently the biggest hospital in the province of Tawi-Tawi. And it is strategically located in the municipality of Bungao, but it is faced with the problem of being not able to really address the health needs of the residents of Bungao in particular and the province of Tawi-Tawi in general, because since it was established as a 25 bed capacity hospital with level 1 classification, it has not been upgraded. And especially that it is located in the remote island province of Tawi-Tawi, we will be doing justice to our brothers in the island province of Tawi-Tawi if the Datuhalon Sakilan Memorial Hospital in Tawi-Tawi is upgraded to level 2 100 bed capacity, because in such a way it will be able to properly address the healthcare problem of its clients. Because of this, I am again appealing to my fellow colleagues in this Bangsamoro Parliament to support me in passing BTE Parliament Bill number 100. I would like to note that my brother MP Edi Mapag-Ali has signified to me that he wished to be one of the principal co-author of this bill, and I would like to say that he is most welcome, and all other MPs who would like to co-author this proposed bill are most welcome. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
MP SAP, linawin ko lang. I think the request of MP Edi Mapag-Ali is to be a principal sponsor, Magkaiba po
Yes,
yung principal. It cannot be at the same time co-author and principal. So,
yeah, along with me. That
Yes,
magiging
principal
dalawa
sponsor.
po kami. Because Mr. Speaker, MP Mapag-Ali would like to also file another bill for the upgrading of the Tuhalon Sakilan, and I informed him that I already have a bill to that effect, and I told him that I welcome him as also a principal author with me.
Noted, MP Sap. Majority Leader,
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move to refer this to the Committee on Health.
there's a motion to refer this to the Committee on Health. Any duly seconded? Any objection? Chair hears none. Same is hereby approved.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we proceed to the unfinished business. This is on item number 11, proposed resolution number 482, which was deferred yesterday, Mr. Speaker. The parliamentary status of this, we are now in the period of debate and interpellation. And this morning, Mr. Speaker, I received a letter from MP Latif designating MP Zia Alonto to defend this proposed resolution, Mr. Speaker, in this August body. May we again respectfully
And
recognize.
in addition, and making MP Deputy Speaker siya as one of the principal
Yes,
sponsors,
Mr. Speaker.
not co-author.
In one of the principal author, Mr. Speaker.
So
Therefore, Mr.
may I
Speaker,
recognize MP Zia?
yes, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is the desire of the principal authors of this measure. That in order for us to secure the progeny of the progeny of the barm, we are also facing a problem in terms of the societal ills. And part of that, part of the proposal that we hope to forward to this parliament, along with the MP Maysara Damdaman Latif, is to secure a possible intervention that would put sustainable effort coming from the barm to address the health issue on the problem of illegal substance abuse. And this is why, Mr. Speaker, we are rising to this occasion because unfortunately, barm is the only region in the country that practically has no drug rehabilitation center. And we are very much aware of what the current administration seeks to address as part of its priority policy of the state, the war against drug. This is, in a way, Mr. Speaker, a support to that call that we have to cleanse our streets from the illegal drug peddlers and also the illegal pushers by not only reducing the demand, but also to make sure that there will be a sustainable support for those who have already been considered as dependent of this illegal substance. We see to it that there is a need for a medical intervention, health intervention, because illegal substance dependency also requires detoxification and assistance that we might need to provide in order for those who have already been addicted to this illegal substance, they would have a future, a brighter future, and would become more, become asset of our society. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, based on the data that we have gathered, the portion in our demographic, the portion of the age bracket, rather, Mr. Speaker, those who have been dependent on this illegal substance, ranging from 18, as young as 15 years old, up to 25 years old. And this is very worrisome, Mr. Speaker, because we believe in the phrase that our youth is the future of our country. And we need to secure them now, today. So by this measure, Mr. Speaker, MP Maysara Damdaman Latif and I, together with our co-authors, hope that we, the Parliament, can consider adopting this measure in order for the BARM to rise up to the occasion and deal with this menace in our society head on by providing assistance to those who have been dependent of this illegal drug substance, so that they will also have a chance to be a better person, Mr. Speaker. I respectfully submit.
Majority Leader.
May we respectfully recognize MP Ampatuan, Mr. Speaker.
This is now the period. Have we opened the period of
I move to open the period of interpellation and debate, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to open the period of interpellation and debate. There any second? Duly seconded. Is there any objection? There being none, same is hereby approved.
May
The
we
period of
respectfully-
interpellation and debate is now open.
May we respectfully request, Mr. Speaker, and paisalin tago.
MP Engineer Bayintan Ampatuan, the Deputy Minority Leader, is
Patuan.
recognized to be followed later by the Deputy Majority Floor Leader, MP Faisal Intago.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just I saw my name because I manifested yesterday and it was accepted by the principal author as one of the co-authors. But I have, if the standing principal author would like to answer some clarificatory question, or maybe the concerned ministries for that matter, Mr. Speaker, regarding this resolution. May I know if they are willing to answer?
We are most respectfully willing to accept an interpellation from the floor, Madam, Mr. Speaker.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I've read the resolution. I know that this is very important for the Bangsamoro region, but would the good proponent know the extent of the problem? How many and where are the bulk of the issues, the problem that we are confronting as far as drugs is concerned?
Mr. Speaker, I can only perhaps give you a rough estimate, Mr. Speaker, as to the current problem in the BARM. What I can say, Mr. Speaker, is that this is not only a problem in the BARM, but this is in fact part of the policy of this current administration. And we've heard the President himself consistently in all of his press releases and interviews that up to now, drug problem and drug menace is still very much part of the headaches, should I say headaches, of this current administration. And I don't have in my possession right now the exact data, but I believe the lady from Maguindanao is fully aware of the problems of illegal drug trade in the BARM. I should not mention those who have already been charged and those who have already been part of the list, narco list in the BARM. So Mr. Speaker, my humble, I guess, reply to the good lady from Maguindanao is a rough estimate, judging from the way this administration is pursuing the war on drugs, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a follow-up, I think one or two questions, Mr. Speaker. My first question earlier is the bulk of the problem, and perhaps in the title of the resolution, there is some sort of an answer because it calls for the establishment of the rehabilitation centers in each of the provinces of the region. That means to say, in all the five provinces of the region, the problem exists. No? So, but I think the problem here is We have also Cotabato City as the center of the government of the Bangsamoro. And if we are to establish in the 5 provinces without looking at the other areas, we might not be hitting the problems. That's my concern actually. Second is, and I would like to ask some of the concerned MPs regarding the plan, because this is not a new problem. This has been a long time problem, and in the time of the current president, there was a war on drugs. And if there is a declaration of the war on drugs, it is a policy at the national level that should have been reflected at the regional level, at the Bangsamoro government's level. My question actually is it not a part of the concerned ministries and offices' plan to establish centers, rehabilitation centers? And it takes the Bangsamoro Transition Authority to call the attention of the ministries and offices to put some establishment rehabilitation centers.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, before I respond to the question, I will give a data. I have here, Mr. Speaker, a data based on the Dangerous Drug Council Board, Dangerous Drug Board, based on their report statistics, 2019 statistics. They said that 35,000, as of that year, 35,000 has already been admitted in various rehabilitation centers in the country. Just a reply to the earlier question of the good lady from Maguindanao. Now to the next question, I agree with her. This is not a problem that just simply came out in this current administration, but rather this is an inherited problem from the previous administrations. Going back to the issue of inheriting this problem, Mr. Speaker, even the previous government of the arm hasn't fully addressed the case of drug dependency and the illegal drug trade in the country by setting up a sustainable program that would provide assistance to those who have been addicted in illegal drug substance. And I agree with her that this is a national policy, considering that no less than the president consistently saying that illegal drug trade is actually a very personal matter to him. And so it is unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, that even before the coming of the BARM, in the previous arm, there's only one rehabilitation center that we came across during our research, Mr. Speaker. The PIDEA is actually constructing Balay Silangan, and the program has been existing even prior to this coming of this new this current administration. And unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, out of the 91 Balay Silangan that have been given to all the region, there's one, according to this report in 2019, a BARM rehab center to be constructed in Sultan Kudarat. Now, before we started the period of debate and interpellation, I approached Papa Tukaw. I approached Papa Tukaw Mastura, a former mayor of Sultan Kudarat, and he corrected the report came out from the PIA that in fact their initiative, it's the local initiative of the LGU of Sultan Kudarat. So meaning to say, there is simply no support from the national government as to the construction of Balay Silangan in the BARM. So that is very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker. And that's why we are putting this discussion before the Parliament so that we can decide collectively.
Yes, please proceed.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker. Actually, my question really is that do we have a roadmap for this problem? Given that it's not a new problem. And the reason why I ask this is because it looks like it takes the BTA to call the attention of the government of the day, or the Bangsamoro government for that matter, to address the issue. My concern is that maybe perhaps there was already an initiative, and maybe we are just repeating the concern, the issue, or echoing the issue, because we have not seen yet any progress if there are plans on the establishment of these centers. It's for me, I would like to find out if there's really a roadmap for this. And if none, then this particular resolution holds true, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
I personally share the observation of the lady from Maguindanao. As far as I know, I haven't really heard any programs relative to the rehabilitation, construction of rehabilitation centers. But her observation really will be answered quite sparely if we do adopt this resolution. And that's the time, upon the adoption, that's the time we would find out how the government of the day would really push or pursue programs relative to illegal drug trade and illegal drug dependency, Mr. Speaker.
Thank
Mr.
you very
Speaker.
much. May I
Mr.
now
Speaker.
call on MP Popoy Tago, if you are through? Sige,
Mr. Speaker.
last question before we go to MP Paisalin Tago.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity, because I think ang issue right now is where to place this particular, what specific ministry or office should answer this particular issue. Is it the MPOS? Is it the Ministry of Health? Is it the MSSD? So if drug addiction is a problem, is a health problem, it should be addressed by MOH. But if there is other issue that involves security, it could be the MPOS. So right now, I don't see the involvement or the actions, concrete actions coming from those concerned ministries and offices. So my question really is, who is supposed to be addressing this particular concern?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, we apologize for coming in short in terms of providing or determining the agency or ministries that would be involved in setting up a program or an initiative coming from the bar, because we thought that the resolution is addressed to the government of the day, and we provide that leeway to the government of the day to decide on how they would pursue this resolution. Of this resolution. But there are other ways, Mr. Speaker, to identify agencies. In the national level, national government, there is the Dangerous Drug Board, which consists of various departments. And perhaps that can also be, in a way, as a working draft for us to contemplate on setting up at this a similar board that would be composed of the counterpart departments of these national agencies in the BARM. And that is just my take on that matter, Mr. Speaker. So again, we did not labor too much on the specificities of what and how do we go about with this plan. We simply would allow the government of the day to decide on how they would act on the request of this parliament to immediately include the problem of drug addiction in the BARM.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and
Thank
thank you,
you, MP
Mr. Speaker, can I answer?
MP Faisal Intago is recognized.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Please, Majority Leader, please
wait.
identify those who would like to interpolate. I can see their
Thank you
hands
very much,
being-
Mr. Speaker. If the Deputy Speaker is willing to answer my question, the incoming Congressman of the First District of Lanao del Sur, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Mr. Speaker, I am willing to accept any questions from my good friend, the former Speaker of RLA, the MP.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Mr. Future. You are the future. Regarding, because the resolution, Mr. Speaker, calls for the establishment of drug treatment and rehabilitation centers. Ano ba ito? We are requesting the government of the day or the chief minister to establish only a structure of the building for a rehabilitation center, or we are requesting for the creation of an office to start to man the rehabilitation center or treatment center. May I know from the gentleman from Lanao, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, what the original formulation or contemplation in prayer of this resolution is to simply construct rehabilitation centers with corresponding staff, because we believe that in order to reduce the illegal substance dependency, it does not only cover the policing side of it, meaning the reduction of the supply, but we also need to reduce the dependency of the illegal drug substance, meaning those who have already been addicted to drugs, illegal substance rather, may require undergoing therapy, detoxification. And that can only be provided if we have the facility to address those problems, Mr. Speaker. And so my reply to my good friend, worthy colleague, the contemplation of the resolution is to simply determine the location perhaps and to provide infrastructure facilities to curb the dependency aspect of illegal drug trade, Mr. Speaker, and abuse, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this resolution is, we are calling on the Chief Minister to establish or structure a rehabilitation center, and at the same time, there is a personnel component to that rehabilitation center. So my follow-up question is that if there is a personnel component or the rehabilitation center was established, what agency or ministry in the BARM will handle that centers? Did you foresee in your resolution what agency or ministry in the BARM that will man that rehabilitation or treatment center, Mr. Speaker?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, there is in the national, because I can only speak of the national model. In the national government, Mr. Speaker, the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, or PDEA, actually has a community-based rehabilitation program or reformation program. They call it as Balay Silangan. And this is the rehabilitation centers, that the exact facilities that they construct to regions. The PDEA, I believe, and I'm sure the gentleman from Taraka in Tamparan is more knowledgeable on the aspect of the structure of governance in the national level. Correct me if I'm wrong, DILG is very much part of securing these facilities. And so we believe, Mr. Speaker, that since the drug dependency in what we try to present to you, Mr. Speaker, is that it is not only a problem of police enforcement, this is also a problem of medical health and mental health situation of all the drug-dependent individuals. And so we thought that we don't no longer dwell too much on exactly identifying the agencies or the ministries that would be involved. Again, I would reiterate my previous answer to the good lady from Maguindanao that the better agencies and the better group that would decide on how they would forego with this plan is the ministers themselves. But if you ask me, Mr. Speaker, in my personal opinion, perhaps the MILG would act as one of the pivotal or one of the most important ministry to address this. Part of that also is the MOH, Mr. Speaker, because we simply do not have the dangerous drug board, and we also do not have the same pattern or the structure of boards or interagency, if I may call it, Mr. Speaker, here in the BARM.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. That's why I asked that, because hindi naman natin gusto na structure lang. Dapat ma-sustain yung rehabilitation center. As a matter of fact, as stated a while ago by the good sponsor of the mission, there is no rehabilitation center in the ARM. Sa pagkalam ko wala. As a matter of fact, when I am the board member under Governor Mahid Mutilan, I propose for the establishment also of the drug rehabilitation center dahil alam natin na ito ay isang sagabal sa pagunlad ng ating mga kanayunan, sa ating mga lugar. Itong paglaganap ng tinuturing natin ng mga drug dependent o ano man gumagawa ng yan sa drug. So that's why I am very supportive of this mission. Ang may papayo ko lang na dapat ito ay pagtuunan natin ng pansin. We are on the budget, ngayon nasa budget budget period tayo ngayon. Dapat may sama sa budget natin na para ma-sustain ang pa-establish ng drug rehabilitation center. Pangalawa, gaya ng sabi kanina ng ating kasama sa Member of Parliament from Maguindanao, si Bayintan ng Patuan, dapat kasama ito sa 12-point agenda of this government so that it can be a priority program for our government, because it not only the youth that was affected, but it affects the entire community of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. So I'm very supportive. Yung ang may papayo ko lang, pagtuunan natin ito ng pansin, and we should include the plans and program activities in our forthcoming budget deliberation. Maraming salamat Mr. Speaker, at saka maraming salamat sa ating future congressman for answering.
Majority Leader.
Thank you po.
Thank you very much.
May we respectfully first advise MP Zulkarnain Abbas to respond with respect to the Minister on Health.
MP
Zulkarnain Abbas.
Zulkarnain Abbas is recognized.
To be followed by MP Romeo Saliga, then MP Zaf
MP
Dipatuan, then MP Liza Lamia. Thank you.
in that order.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
Okay,
Please
so thank you
proceed.
very much, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Majority Floor Leader. I would like to respond to the query of the good lady from Maguindanao. And actually, we have included that in our plans, Mr. Speaker. We are in the process of crafting a bill for the said purpose. Initially, we are planning to establish a drug rehab center in Maguindanao and in the Sulu Provincial Hospital. And sa Maguindanao po, Maguindanao Provincial Hospital. So yun po yung two, and we have included that in our HFEP plans, or Health Facilities Enhancement Program plans. Now these rehab centers, this will entail, of course, PS, aside from the capital outlay, PS and MOE components, Mr. Speaker. The PS component of that is for a 100-bed capacity treatment center. The PS requirement would be around 94 and 144 for 300 bed capacity rehab centers. So yung 100 bed po is around 94 po yon, no? So maliban po doon, ang MOE po nito is like the MOE of the hospitals, no? So for example, if if the bed capacity is nasa 75, for example, 41 million po yung MOE niya. If the bed capacity of the rehab center is 25, it's 13 million. So ganon, may kaagibat po. And meron pong standard po ito from the DOH. So national standard po ito. So yun, no? So we have standard. Yung standard po na itsurak, standard po na MOE, and standard PS po nito. So yun po yun.
Majority Leader.
Yes, may we respectfully recognize MP Romeo Saliga, Mr. Speaker.
MP Romeo Saliga is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will my co-proponent, because I was also the co-author of this, I support this bill, this resolution, Mr. Speaker, knowing the importance of addressing drugs in the Bangsamoro. Is she willing to respond to some clarification?
It'd be an honor, Mr. Speaker.
My first clarification, Mr. Speaker, I know the problems on drugs is a wide scale and very complicated. A lot of our people are involved, military, even with our judiciary, with our local governments. So everything is involved in this drugs. Are there, or did the proponent have a preliminary consultations or meeting with the drug agency concerns, like we have the PDEA, the one that he had mentioned before a while ago?
No, Mr.
Before
Speaker.
crafting this one.
No, Mr. Speaker, we did not.
So meaning to say that sometimes when, I think it's part of the legislative process, even in drafting resolutions, that we need to know first, have consulted all those who were involved in these issues.
I understand, Mr. Speaker, but this is an urgent, as what the gentleman tries to describe. This is an urgent matter, and we believe that we don't need to eat the whole apple in order to know its taste. So there's already a problem of drug dependency, and it requires an immediate action from this Parliament, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, knowing the complications at the budget, I heard our Ministry of Health, one of our colleague from the Ministry of Health. Do we have a concrete or comprehensive study really as to the drug situation here in the barn? Like, for example, because this will be necessary in the budgeting, given that the proposal is 6 provinces, and it will really eat a lot of funds from our budget. So do we have any feasibility studies concerning the issue of drugs, especially on putting up this, in regards to putting up the 6?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, some of the cases involving illegal drug trade in the bar, Mr. Speaker, are not easily available online. You have to request them, especially those who have already been charged in the court. So secondly, on the case of the rehabilitation, again, we reiterate that there's no rehabilitation center, and so we cannot provide the good gentleman an actual figure as to the number of the drug dependency in the BARM, and as well as the ongoing illegal drug trade in the BARM, because again, those data can already be accessed if you, number one, those who have already been in the court, charged by the court, are not accessible to public. And number two, you have to request for such data for them to be available to you, Mr. Speaker.
So with that, Mr. Speaker, meaning to say, do the sponsor or the proponent support in case there is really a need for us to conduct further study on this before we to support our proposal to put up those drug centers and rehabilitation?
Again, Mr. Speaker, let me just reiterate that the prayer and the contemplation of this resolution is to simply deal with the issue on dependency of from the illegal drug substance. Meaning to say there is a need for the government of the day to perhaps address the case of addiction, illegal substance addiction among our youth, among the largest sector of our society, Mr. Speaker. And that is what we intend to provide here. Now, would I support any study? Of course, Mr. Speaker, because that would give us a clear picture on how deep and how wide this problem is, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, that is not part of what the resolution hopes to address, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, knowing the magnitude of the problem, isn't it not appropriate even to pass a bill instead of a resolution? Because we will really incur huge costs. And I think our colleague from the Ministry of Health has expressed that they are planning to file a bill on these issues, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I thank the gentleman from Maguindanao for informing this Parliament that there is an ongoing drafting by him, perhaps for the establishment of rehabilitation centers, and this is in a way would even reinforce that initiative. This will strengthen that call to file for a bill. This resolution would in fact strengthen the call for the establishment of a rehabilitation center, as explained to us by the good Deputy Minister of MOH.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On my part, I support these resolutions and bill if filed later, but I just also want to express that a further studies to support the resolution and the bill would, I think, be much better. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I support the appeal of the gentleman from Maguindanao.
Thank you. Next, Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, MP Zap Dipatuan, Mr. Speaker.
Sap Dipatuan
Yes,
is
Mr.
recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Majority Floor Leader, for giving me the floor. Also, I would like to thank the principal author of this resolution for including my name as one of the co-authors. I just manifested the other day my intention to become one of the co-author, and now I saw my name that it is already included. So I do not intend to interpolate the good gentleman from Lanao del Sur, but I wish to make a manifestation in the hope that I will be able to support the good intention of this resolution. I would just like to mention at the outset that the problem of drug addiction in general must be confronted in an interagency approach. However, with regards to drug treatment, I believe that the responsibility falls on the Ministry of Health. Drug dependency and drug addiction is considered a health problem. So therefore, it is the responsibility of the Ministry of Health to focus their attention on that. I would like to mention that during my incumbency as the Ministry of Health, I proposed for the establishment of drug rehabilitation centers in our areas in BARM. But during that time, I was informed that that would only be possible with the adoption in the BTA Parliament of at least a resolution or maybe even a bill that would really call for the establishment of drug rehabilitation centers so that it could be funded. So that is the reason why it is but in order that we are now passing this resolution, and hopefully later on a proposed bill will also be passed so that we will be able to implement our good intention of drug prevention and treatment in our different areas in BARM. I would like also to mention that since there is no single drug rehabilitation center in the areas of the BARM, our drug dependents are being referred to drug rehabilitation centers in other areas, such as in Bukidnon, in Cagayan de Oro City, and in Davao City. And in these drug rehabilitation centers, what they are serving are usually haram foods because they are serving pork. So if we will be able to establish our own drug rehabilitation center, we will be able to ensure that the foods that are being served to our drug addicts and drug dependents are
save on time and give it to other important other matters, we should abide by our parliamentary rules. The parliamentary rules is the parliamentary status now is the period of interpellation and debate. So if you don't have any question, please save us the time. So thank you very much.
Yes. May we respectfully recognize MP Minority Floor Leader, MP Raisa Lam.
May I recognize the Minority Floor Leader, MP Liza Lamia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Majority Floor Leader. If the proponent would allow, I would like to continue asking questions, as taking off from the previous questions that were asked. Considering that it seems that the proponent right now is not ready with data with respect to the status of drug addicts in the entire BARM and per province as much as possible, because the resolution calls for the setting up of rehabilitation centers per province. And the fact that MP Zulkarnain Abbas has already mentioned earlier that they have a bill and that they have already included also for the 2021 budget, that's the current year, there is a budget for the construction of 2 rehabilitation centers because it's very expensive. That is true. And when we ask for the construction of these rehabilitation centers, it's not just the infra, but we need to take into consideration the PS also and the operationalization of these centers. Considering these facts that are now before us, may I ask Mr. Speaker, the proponent, if he is willing to um, defer discussion on this resolution and discuss this later when we tackle the said budget that was mentioned by MP Zulkarnain Abbas and the bill that he mentioned that they will be passing, because I think it is also understood that if it is about rehabilitation and treatment, there is no other agency that should handle this except the Ministry of Health. Will the proponent be willing to do that, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, with all due respect to the good minority leader, if the resolution is in direct conflict of the bill that is now being drafted, then I am much willing to withdraw the resolution. The resolution, in fact, is a call to action. That is precisely why we did not labor so much on identifying the ministries that will handle the rehabilitation centers. I believe we are all in agreement that we need a rehabilitation center in the BARM. And so, with all due respect to our good minority leader, even if there is a draft bill or a bill that is currently in its draft stage, any member or this parliament is not precluded to submit or to adopt a resolution. Especially in this particular moment, Mr. Speaker, that this resolution is not in contrary to the idea or the proposal of the good Deputy Minister of Health. Rather, I see this, Mr. Speaker, this resolution as an act of Parliament to reinforce the call of the Department of the Ministry of Health to fast track the bill in order for us to establish a facility that would cater for the illegal drug dependence in our country, in the BARM.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like, Mr. Speaker, to make a disclaimer. I am in favor, just like the proponent, and I think everyone here in the BTA, of establishing rehabilitation centers. In fact, I agree with the general intent of the resolution to establish rehabilitation centers in the BARM. But I ask that question because of the current an intervening event. No? The facts have now been laid down, because earlier these facts were not before the proponent. When the proponent was asked by MP Baintan Ampatuan, and those facts are not yet ready. In fact, there were other agencies that were mentioned. But I think, Mr. Speaker, the reason why I'm asking this question is because as members of the parliament, as parliamentarians, when we come up with resolutions, as a resolution is like also a policy direction, we should back it up with data, with information, to justify, as well as, if it is a policy direction, we are now saying that the government of the day should establish rehabilitation centers, which in effect means they have not established rehabilitation centers. And so we should be able to give specific details with respect to instructions as to how to operationalize them. So, for example, the rehabilitation center would entail it's not just the building of the infra, but it would entail a budget. It should become a program and not just an ad hoc project that's being implemented for 1 year or 2 years, but it should be a continuing program within the BARM and part of the regular program of the MOH. And so, Mr. Speaker, considering that these are not available, and I think that the proponent would just want that this resolution would be passed. Anyway, this resolution is addressed to the government of the day, and I think that's the reason why people, other MPs have been asking these questions, whether the government of the day would be accepting this resolution. It's us telling, it's the BTA telling itself to build the rehabilitation centers. when these rehabilitation centers, the construction for this is already in the budget of the MOH, as said by MP Zulkarnain Abbas, Mr. Speaker. I don't have any other question, but I just would like to point out, no, on the wisdom of not specifically for this resolution, but on the wisdom of passing resolutions that would seem in some cases superfluous because of an existing bill, or because this is already a policy naman pala by the government of the day. But I fully support the main proponent, MP Maysara Latif, for actually raising this into a resolution and requesting or making or telling the government of the day to please set up rehabilitation center. So I'm in support of that idea, Mr. Speaker, but I would just like to remind our colleagues as to how resolutions as policy directions should be construed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much.
Just a quick reaction to that. First of all, I'd like to thank the good minority leader for providing us more information and for even elevating the discussion in the Parliament. If we wanted to have, Mr. Speaker, a detailed plan, I believe the original sponsor of this measure is well equipped with all the information, and she is capable of proposing a bill. Now, I agree, Mr. Speaker, that a resolution is a policy direction, but it is also a judgment call. That is why a resolution can also be a manifestation of a sentiment of the Parliament. This resolution is a call to action. It is a sentiment of the Parliament. It is a judgment call of the Parliament for the government of the day to make it as part of their policy to construct rehabilitation centers. I may not have an actual data of the exact number of illegal substance dependents in the region, but this is already a prevalent problem. That is perhaps my shortcoming as a human being, as a person, as one of the author. And I apologize for not being able to provide you with the actual data. But the mere fact that the Deputy Minister already informed this Parliament that there is an ongoing bill would speak that this issue is in fact part of the program of this government of the day to address the problem. And this resolution, as a judgment call, as a call to action, would reinforce, Mr. Speaker, that initiative, that the drafting of that bill, and even it would even fast track, Mr. Speaker, the drafting of the bill, which explains to us earlier by the Deputy Minister, good Deputy Minister of MOH. And so I thank the good minority leader. In all honesty, I thank her for elevating the issue and for allowing me to explain to you how, in my 10 years of service in the legislative branch, know how a resolution is for, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
So let me cut you to the chase. What is I think the question was, are you willing to defer?
I've already answered that, Mr. Speaker, that if this is in a way indirect conflict of the current bill that is being drafted, then I am willing to withdraw. Not in fact defer, but withdraw. But since this resolution clearly, Mr. Speaker, supports that initiative from MOH, and I hope that we can already discuss this, continue to discuss this, and maybe perhaps the Parliament will make its final judgment in the adoption stage.
So you are not willing to defer?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I am willing to continue the discussion.
Thank you. Majority
Yes,
Leader.
Mr. Speaker, unahin mo natin si Musa Jamlat to be followed by MP Sultan Rimbang and then MP Don Lo, Mr. Speaker.
In that
Musa
order, MP Musa Jamla is recognized. Can we please, my appeal to our colleagues is to go direct to the question and shorten the question, not a paragraph, but a sentence. So
Thank you, Mr.
just,
Speaker.
Just my appeal to you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Speaker.
very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The record says that I am one of the sponsor. And I happen to be one of the sponsor of the resolution because it is a resolution bringing it to the attention of the government of the day. And this is so very important. Why, Mr. Chair? Just recently, in our province of Lanao del Sur, there is what do you call this, confrontation of the MILF combatant and the armed forces of the Philippines because of a case where one is accused to be a drug addict and a drug dealer. And as practice, I do not know if it is practiced today, but as practiced before, MILF are apprehending drug addicts and drug, how do you call them, businessmen. So with this, there is really very good reasons to bring it to the attention of the government of the day because of the problem that I have just mentioned. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, on the matter of the report of the Deputy Minister on Health, I believe that in other jurisdiction, drug-related drug treatment are undertaken by the Philippine National Police under the local government, and also the health department because of the psychological needs. And the third is that the Ministry of Social Services are also involved in supporting the rehabilitation of this. So, Mr. Chair, I hope that the proponent of this resolution give inputs to the forthcoming, if there is any, as it is not yet filed, that will create a rehabilitation center. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Majority Leader.
MP Sultan Rimbang, Mr. Speaker.
MP Sultan Rimbang is recognized. Please go direct to the point.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Jadi, Deputy Speaker, Attorney Nabiltan, Majority Floor Leader, Member of Parliament, sa mga guest staff. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Mr. Speaker, ito po yung bill na ito na pinamagatan na Resolution Treatment Rehabilitation Center. Ito po ay vision and mission ng ating Pangulong Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Napakaganda ito at kailangan din ito na Bangsamoro. Dapat nga ito bill na to. Sa akin, sa decision lang, hindi ko pinapangunahan yung proponent. Pero dapat ang vision din ito, mission din ito na Bangsamoro. Kasi una Islam tayo, nasa Sarialo tayo. So, ang mga tanong ko lang dito, Mr. Speaker, sino ba ang mga kailangan dito i-coordinate para lehitimo na maipatayo itong mga rehabilitation center? Dahil alam naman natin, dahil dito sa regarding dito sa Bangsamoro, mismo yung mga minsan di natin maintindihan yung mga gumagawa na hindi ka nais-nais baka mamaya mga kamag-anak pa o kaibigan. Alam mo naman dito, hindi katulad sa ibang like Visayas, Luzon, na ang pinapiral talaga batas. So gusto ko lang malaman kung sino yung mga i-coordinate natin ito, kailangan dito sa mga kasama dito, sino yung mga kasama natin dito na mag-produce, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, ang hindi po ito batas, ito po ay isang resolusyon at hindi po ito polisiya, ito po ay panawagan. Dahil meron po tayong tiwala sa government of the day na may kakayahan po sila at meron po silang resources na pwedeng gamitin para po sa ipatayo ang mga ninanais natin ang panawagan natin sa liderato ng bar, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
So, sila na po ang government of the day, Mr. Speaker, ang magdedesisyon kung sila po ay tumugon sa ating panawagan na ito.
Mr. Speaker, napakaganda po yung sagot nating my colleagues. Si MP siya, Deputy Speaker. So total nandiyan naman yung resolution na ito. Narinig ko kayo na kay siya Dr. MP Saf na merong inanga doon, nag-isip pa. Kasi yun, nandiyan yung resolution na yan. Bakit hindi natin to bigyan ng importansya yung resolution na ito para makatulong ito sa Bangsamoro. Para naman yung mga nag-aadik-adikan dyan sa mga lugar natin kung mayroon pang natitira, medyo mabigyan sila na magandang kinabukasan. Lalo po sa next generation po natin, Mr. Speaker.
Salamat.
Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Moderator Leader, brother and sister.
Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, MP Don Long to be followed by MP Tuko Mastura and MP Eddie Ali.
In that order. MP Dolong is recognized.
MP
Thank you, Mr.
Mangalaga.
Speaker. Thank you, Majority Floor Leader. The Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002 actually required the DOH to establish provincial drug rehabilitation centers in each province. So I think this is in accordance to that, although I don't know why this has not yet happened or has been not yet been established. And there's also a provision on plea bargaining for those caught in violation of the Dangerous Drugs Act, that they could do plea bargaining if there are available drug rehab centers. And based on the news feeds, the Bangsamoro region is one of the few regions that still does not have, it's called drug abuse treatment and rehabilitation centers. So there are 64 drug rehabilitation centers in the country, but none of it is existing in the Bangsamoro region. So while I welcome this resolution, I also really look forward that there will already be a bill for this. But I just like to ask the proponent, does the MOH have the expertise to manage this drug rehabilitation center? The current MOH plantilla.
Well, I am not, I believe, Mr. Speaker, in authority to provide you an answer as to the question. I apologize. My guess is as good as the gentleman's. But since the reply or the manifestation of the good Deputy Minister of MOH explaining to the Parliament that there is an ongoing bill that is currently in the draft form, then I believe they are also proposing the manpower needed to serve the facility or to handle the facilities, Mr. Speaker.
Well, in the recent update, Mr. Speaker, there are already almost 5,000 beds with these 64 drug rehabilitation centers, and nationwide, there's around 12,000 beds that is needed. And based on what I heard from MOH, that they are already presenting a bill. My other question, Mr. Speaker, is the DOH, because the PNP jurisdiction over drug rehabilitation centers was turned over to DOH along with the funding. So was there no national programs that coordinated with the MOH for the implementation of this? I believe there's a this is an existing national program. In fact, they were saying in 2018 that they are finishing one drug abuse treatment and rehabilitation center. So I'm assuming that one drug abuse and treatment rehabilitation center, or no, I mean they're saying that it is only in the Bangsamoro, aside from CAR, that there is no drug abuse treatment and rehabilitation center. But I'm imagining that there's a national coordination as regards to this.
In my experience, Mr. Speaker, in the previous KRMM, I never encountered any initiative or any communication pertaining to this nationally funded program. But I agree with the gentleman from Sulu. This program has been ongoing since 2002. Unfortunately, again, and I would like to share his observation here in the BARM, even before the coming in of BARM 2 years ago, there was no, and up to now, no rehabilitation centers. And to answer his observation, I believe, the mere absence of rehabilitation centers here in our region would speak that there is no funding that was downloaded or allocated for the establishment of the said facilities, Mr. Speaker, from the nationally funded program of the PIDEA or the Dangerous Drug Board, Mr. Speaker.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. In order not to delay anymore, I support the resolution, but I also support the immediate submission of the bill to create this rehabilitation center so that we can really appropriate an organization as well as the technical experts and the funding for it. Because we must remember one of the flagship advocacies of the current president is the asking drug addicts to surrender. And nationwide, there were 1.3 million surrenderies. And I would assume that we also had tens of thousands of surrenderies. And these drug rehabilitation centers would have been very useful and is still very relevant and useful for them. Moreover, the 2018 Supreme Court directive of plea bargaining for those accused of illegal possession of drugs, and even those that can be penalized between 12 years to 20 years can have a recourse of plea bargaining wherein they could go to the drug rehabilitation centers if there were here in the Bangsamoro. So with that point of the Supreme Court, then it is really very urgent and necessary and needed in the Bangsamoro. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the time.
Thank you,
Majority Leader.
Dato Tuko Mastura,
Mr. Speaker.
MP Tukaw Mastura is recognized.
Thank you very much, Speaker. This resolution is really very timely to catch the attention of the government of the day where I belong. No? It's really important that we pass or we support this resolution because Darapanan itself has become a hub of drug dealers. In fact, the late Montashir had a camp away from Darapanan. I talked to the chief minister about this. In fact, a lot of commanders are asking me to lead the operation in that area. So that 2 weeks ago, I had spoke with the minister, my brother Sami Gamba, and we agreed that we'll have a joint operation against these people who are making the bananas protective area. And that's why this resolution is very timely to appeal to the government of the day to really support this resolution. And in fact, I would like to correct this news when it says that Barn Rehab Center opens in Maguindanao, in Sultan Kudarat. This rehab center was established by me when I was still mayor in Sultan Kudarat. And it was only for purpose of those who are drug addicts in Sultan Kudarat. But it would be very much appreciated if Barn can have a rehab center of its own. And I wish to be a co-sponsor of this resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Majority Leader.
Yes, MP Eddie Ali to be followed by MP Mangudadato.
MP Eddie Ali is recognized to be followed by MP Toy Kadafi Mangudadato.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Majority Floor Leader. I'm a co-author of this resolution, but I have some clarificatory question to
Please
the
proceed.
principal author. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, am I right in my understanding that the call for the Bangsamoro government to establish these centers is premised on the prevalence of drug users and in order to reduce drug dependency? Mr. Speaker, itong panawagang ito sa Bangsamoro government, is this premise on the prevalence of drug users and for us to reduce drug dependency, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, my answer to that is in affirmative. And not only that, Mr. Speaker, we are also acknowledging the medical side of it. So this rehabilitation center could also become a treatment center for illegal substance dependence, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, do you think, or are we made again to understand that the call is in support to the war on drugs as a program, as a concern of the national government?
On the side, Mr. Speaker, of reducing the dependency rate of illegal drug substance, then I would agree with the gentleman from Tawi-Tawi, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, at this point in time, we are saying that we do not have enough information about the drug problem in the Bangsamoro.
Mr. Speaker, just a disclaimer on that. It's not that we don't have the actual data. It's just I am owning to my personal shortcomings, Mr. Speaker. I don't have in possession with me actual data as requested by some of our colleagues, Mr. Speaker. But there is, I believe, a data from ARMM, from BARM, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I asked that question because I would like to provide some data as far as tawi-tawi is concerned. But before that, Mr. Speaker, do you think that the absence of these centers discourage even the PDEA and other agencies to apprehend drug users because they have no place to bring to this drug dependence?
Mr. Speaker, I believe the PDEA or the national government would be even welcome this initiative Because we know, Mr. Speaker, that since 2002, there has already been a resources used by the national government by virtue of a law, and there has been consistently been providing for the region from PDEA, Bahay Silangan. And so, Mr. Speaker, this initiative of ours would be, I believe, would be very much welcome by the national government, because I presume since they are moving to that track, then there's no way I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be happy if the BARM would construct treatment or rehabilitation centers.
I'm asking that, Mr. Speaker, because as co-author, I am convinced of all call. Bakit po? Nakakausap ko po ang mga PDEA sa tawi-tawi. Isa po sa pinakamalaking problema, siguro nababasa din nyo rin sa newspapers anong nangyari sa drugs trafficking sa tawi-tawi. Ang problema po ng PDEA, wala pong rehabilitation center sa tawi-tawi. Kaya nga po, ang mga tanong kong ito are just premise to yung suporta for the call. Alam niyo po sa tawi-tawi, allegedly, kung pupunta kayo sa islands ng tawi-tawi, ang pagtitinda ng drugs ay parang pagtitinda ng candies. Ganon po kalala ang problema. Ang pagkawala po ng drug rehabilitation centers is, to me, is an indication that parang hindi seryoso ang gobyerno in addressing the war on drugs in the barn. Kaya nga hanggat ngayon walang drug rehabilitation centers dito. Kaya nga po, ito halimbawa, I just would like to mention very briefly, Mr. Speaker, yung suporta ko sa pagkakaroon o sa panawagang ito. For example, very lately, 4.7 million worth of drugs seized in Tawi-Tawi. This was in April 2021. In July 2026, another 68,000 worth of drugs ay nakuha din ng PDEA at ng mga pulis. 5.8 million worth of drugs seized in Basilan, in Tawi-Tawi on April 2021. Ang dami po. Kaya sa palagay ko po panahon na kung ang apprehension ang tanong sa atin mga authors and co-authors, paano po ba ito i-implement, i-operationalize ang drug centers nito? Sinabi na po kanina, at ito ay suporta sa bill sa pagkakaroon ng rehabilitation centers. Na sabi nga kanina ng ating Deputy Minister ng Health na sa program, and they are actually drafting the bill. Yung panawagan na dapat i-withdraw or itong resolution na to, I think I support the proponent, Mr. Speaker, na dapat nga ipasa itong resolution na to as a support to pagkakaroon natin po ng batas. So I think there's no problem. I would agree with you, Mr. Speaker, our proponent, na dapat mapag-usapan na to. At sa palagay ko po, there is no contradiction to the plan of magkakaroon tayo ng batas on how to address the drug menace in the barn. Yun lang po, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Ang aking panawagan. At maraming salamat po, Mr. Speaker, at sa aming proponent po.
Maraming salamat din po, Mr. Speaker.
MP Mangudadato.
Majority Leader. MP.
Mangudadato. Kadapi.
MP Kadapi Mangudadato from Maguindanao is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Having said all those opinions coming from the members of this chamber, Mr. Speaker, for me, the only intention of the resolution is calling the government of the day for them to consider establishing rehabilitation centers for the drug-dependent Bangsamoro or constituents of the BARM. Now, of all those statements, opinions, comments from this chamber, this is a simple resolution. And as agreed during yesterday's session, this resolution be treated as simple. Ang dami na hong nag-come up na discussion relative to the intention of the resolution, which I believe, Mr. Speaker, all of those queries as well as suggestions coming from the members is dapat mapapag-usapan mo na yan sa level ng committee. Now, I do not see any further discussion for the calling of the government of the day for them to consider establishing a rehabilitation center. It's up for the government of the day if they will allow or if they will acknowledge the call of this resolution for them to establish. From there, Mr. Speaker, where any member can sponsor a bill for the establishment of that rehabilitation center. Considering, Mr. Speaker, that any form of construction of any projects within the book, there is a need for a legislative action coming from this chamber. Mr. Speaker, again, though I am not a member, I'm not a co-author of this measure, but I am asking the proponent if he will allow this representation to be part of this measure as co-author. Again, Mr. Speaker, so much has been discussed relative to the resolution, and maybe it's about time to approve this. It's about time to this, Mr. Speaker. Ang intention po ng resolution is noble. All this is very sad to me. It's a very sad part because being a Moro, being a Muslim, it was already declared that shabu is haram. Using illegal drugs is haram. There is no room for a Muslim, for an Islam by religion, Mr. Speaker, to engage into any illegal drug activities because that is haram per se, Mr. Speaker. So by doing so, Mr. Speaker, therefore, we are amenable na marami palang hindi Islam sa Bangsamoro because they are using illegal drugs. So again, Mr. Speaker, due to the prevailing situation of the illegal drug victims, it's about time for the government of the day to look into and act on the resolution, the intention of this resolution. Anyway, for further discussion on the level of the committee, we can discuss it thoroughly, Mr. Speaker. So again, I move to close the period of interpellation, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, on the first
Second.
we thank the good majority leader, assistant majority leader. On his request, Mr. Speaker, to be part of this measure as co-author, I believe I shared that reply with the original author, MP Maysara Latif. If the presiding officer and the majority leader yields to the request of this humble representation that we provide at least a minute or so to the original author, to my co-principal author, MP Maysara Latif, to respond to the request of MP Toy. Mr. Speaker. I respectfully submit.
Before we recognize MP Maysara, we have been deliberating on this for more than 1 hour. And I hope that I would like to appeal to you to please shorten your statement and go direct to the question. Salamat po, MP Maysara.
Mr. Speaker, I hope that we have already deliberated fully the merits of this simple resolution expressing our sentiment, just to express our sentiment to put up or for the Bangsamoro government to put up rehabilitation centers in our respective provinces in an answer to the call of our youths. We have to protect them. We have to give them all the support that they need so that they can succeed in life. So I believe, Mr. Speaker, we need to pass this as soon as possible as a simple resolution. It's an expression, as my good colleague has already exhaustively explained and brilliantly enlightened this honorable body. He patiently answered each and every question, and I believe that it is really, for me, he has defended very well this simple resolution. My colleague, I hope with your kind indulgence, we pass this resolution already, because we have already exhaustively discussed this. And we know for a fact that if we refer this to the committee, much more delay will be had, because in the committee level, we are discussing so many bills and resolutions already. And this one has already been discussed, deliberated, not only by members of the committee, but the entire plenary. So, Mr. Speaker, I humbly ask my colleague to pass this resolution today as a simple resolution, as an expression, a collective sentiment of our members of the parliament's support for our youth of today, to save them from possible harm should we not act on this resolution, and should the government not have rehabilitation centers for them.
Thank you, MP Maysara. I think earlier there was a motion from Kadapi Mangodadato to close the period of interpellation.
I seconded, Mr. Speaker.
And duly seconded. Is there any objections? Chair hears none. Same is hereby approved.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of amendment.
There is a motion to open the period of amendments. Do I hear any second?
Mr. Speaker.
Second.
Duly seconded. Is there any objection? Chair hears none. Same is hereby approved. Period of amendments is now open.
Mr. Speaker, I move to close the period of amendment, Mr. Speaker.
MP Deputy Speaker Omar Sema, what is the pleasure of the Deputy Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, I move to close the period of amendment and move to adopt the resolution, Mr. Speaker, subject to style.
Before that, Mr. Speaker, may I be recognized?
There is a motion to close the period of amendments.
May we first recognize
Mr.
MP
Speaker.
Mangodadato.
MP Toy Mangodadato is recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before the chair could act on the motion, I have an appeal to the proponent of this measure, and I wish to be part of the noble measure. As replied by the Deputy Speaker Alonto, he referred the appeal of this representation to the proponent of the resolution, and I did not hear any affirmative response from the principal author.
I fully
please respond.
I fully and wholeheartedly accept the additional manifestation of co-author by MP Kadafi Mangodadato alias Toy, my friend and brother.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam, and thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
May we now go to
And I would like to
MP,
second the motion
Deputy.
of the Deputy Speaker Omar Sema, Mr. Speaker.
Meron pa?
Mr. Speaker.
Deputy Speaker Omar Sema is
Deputy Speaker Sema, Mr. Speaker.
MP Baintan muna daw. MP Baintan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity.
Amendments ba yan, Baintan?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, earlier I asked the areas where these proposed rehabilitation centers will be put at.
Then if we go to
the
the amendments period, maybe the Secretariat should flush the body of the resolution before we touch the title.
Yeah,
The body muna tayo.
in the prayer close, Mr. Speaker,
Saan yun?
and maybe we can put another whereas clause there, stating that there is no existing rehabilitation center in any of the areas of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region.
Tapos ka na sa taas, pababa? Or
Yeah, another whereas, Mr.
at the
Speaker.
last part na?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. And I go to the prayer close by stating that now, therefore, be it resolved by the Bangsamoro Transition Authority for the government to consider the establishment of drug treatment and rehabilitation centers in strategic areas within the territorial jurisdiction of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. The reason, Mr. Speaker, is that we don't have only the 5 provinces, we have other areas. And I know that putting up a rehabilitation center is costly. So that's why maybe we can put first in some strategic areas, and later on we can move by municipality or by specific area, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, again, on my part, Mr. Speaker, I have no problem with the proposal. I believe MP Maysara will also accede to the
Accepted.
proposal.
I accept, Mr. Speaker, the proposal.
Accepted.
We accept.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Accept
That's
at
all.
reject lang tayo, ha? Amendments na to eh. Wala nang
Yes,
debate.
Mr. Speaker. My proposed amendments is another whereas clause and the the prayer clause and the title, Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead.
The title would copy paste mo
Yung
lang
whereas
prayer
muna
clause.
tayo. You don't touch the title until we're done with the whereases.
Yeah. So we can go to the whereas, last whereas. Whereas the Bangsamoro government has no rehabilitation has no rehabilitation center, established rehabilitation center in any of the provinces and cities of the region, of the Bangsamoro region.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I have no problem with the proposal, Mr. Speaker. I believe MP Maysara will also accept.
Yes,
Thank you.
accepted. Accepted, Mr. Speaker.
That's all, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Hindi na ba nyo lalagyan ng geographic units? Yung provinces,
Pwede rin.
cities? Geographic units, yung 39 barangays is a geographic unit.
Provinces, cities, and including the new geographic areas.
Accepted? Accepted?
Yes, we accept.
Accepted. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You now go to the title.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, the title, I've already said that the prayer clause, copy paste it to the title. Nandiyan na po.
No, we will have to go to the title and make the proper amendment.
Copy paste mo yung inad mo sa prayer clause.
Yung prayer clause daw, naintindihan mo ng secretariat yon. Punta na tayo sa title, i-copy paste yung prayer clause. Yan ang magiging amended title. Ganun ba yan, Paintan?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Tanggalin mo yung in each of the provinces kasi pinalitan mo na. Each of the provinces. Strategic. Tanggalin mo yan. Rehabilitation. Kinopya mo na lang sana, cut and paste. Rehabilitation centers in strategic areas. Within the territorial jurisdiction. Alisin mo yung off-D. That's all, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I move to close the period of amendment.
There's now a motion to close the period of amendments. Do I hear any second? Seconded. Do you hear any objection? Chair hears none. Same is hereby approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the approval of the proposed resolution subject to style, Mr. Speaker.
There is now a motion to approve the proposed resolution subject to style. Duly seconded. There any objection? Chair hears none. Proposed resolution is approved.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we proceed to the business of the day. This is mere a commendation, Mr. Speaker, so I hope there will be no debate on this proposed resolution. First, we are on the proposed resolution 496, Mr. Speaker. I move to open the period of interpellation and debate, Mr. Speaker.
We are now in proposed resolution number 496.
Yes.
And there is a motion to open the period of interpellation and debate. Is there any second?
Good.
Is there any second? Duly seconded. Is there any objection? Chair hears none. Same is hereby approved. The period of interpellation and debate is now open.
Mr. Speaker, I don't intend to interpolate, provided that the hard copy should be reconciled with the e-copy as flashed in the screen right now. Based on the hard copy, I'm not part of the resolution. So I need to correct it, Mr. Speaker.
You're one of the principal authors.
Mr. Speaker, in the hard copy that was provided to us, I'm not part of this particular resolution. But we've already talked with, he promised me to be part of this resolution,
Yes.
and I found out in the hard copy.
Nagsenyas na rito ang Deputy Speaker. Okay na raw, Engineer Baintan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I move to close the period of interpellation and debate.
There's now a motion to close the period of interpellation and debate.
Second.
Seconded. Is there any objection? Chair hears none. Same is hereby approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of amendment.
There's now a motion to open the period of amendments. Is there any second? Duly seconded. Is there any objection? Chair hears, hereby approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move to close the period of amendment. Mr. Speaker.
Second.
Close the period of amendments. Duly seconded. Is there any objection? Chair hears none.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the approval of this proposed resolution number 496.
There is now a motion. Proposed resolution duly seconded. Do I hear any objection? There being none.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of interpellation of proposed resolution number 498, Mr. Speaker.
There's now a motion to open the period of interpellation for proposed resolution 498. There any second? Duly seconded. Is there any objection? Chair hears none. Same is hereby approved. The period of interpellation and debate is now open for proposed resolution 498.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, I move to close the period of interpellation and debate.
There is a motion to close the period of interpellation and debate for proposed resolution 498. Is there a second? Duly seconded.
Second.
Mr. Speaker, prior to the closure. Mr.
Chair hears
Speaker,
none. Same is hereby approved.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes. MP.
Yes. Ano yan? Sinong boses yun?
MP Ramos, Mr. Speaker.
MP
Ramos.
MP Ramos, Mr. Speaker.
MP Ramos. What is the pleasure of MP Jamla Ramos?
Well, I just would like to put into record that I did not receive an attachment of this resolution. However, Mr. Speaker, deriving from the title itself, I would like to be a part of this resolution, to be a co-author.
Accepted.
Yes,
Accepted.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. All the members
Speaker.
of Parliament would like to be co-authors, just they do so and inform the Secretary General.
And
Mr.
the
Speaker.
chat box also.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. MP
Mr. Speaker.
Omar Sema, Mr. Speaker.
Deputy Speaker Omar Sema is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, may I respectfully manifest that I am extending my personal greetings to the officialdom of Mindanao State University. I was a former student of MSU, and I love the Mindanao State University, and may I be a co-author of this resolution, Mr. Speaker.
Accept.
MP Zia.
MP Zia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to associate myself with the statement of Deputy Speaker Omar Sema. I also used to be member of the MSU Board of Regents, and so I am extending also my commendation.
So do you accept?
And I already also indicated in the written form that I would also like to be part of this measure.
So do
Thank
you
you, Mr.
accept
Speaker.
the co-authorship offer?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Accepted. Accepted, Omar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of amendment.
There's now a motion to open the period of amendments.
Mr.
Is there any
Speaker,
second?
Mr.
Duly
Speaker,
seconded. Is there
before,
any?
Mr. Speaker, MP Latif, Mr. Speaker, I would also like
If
to
Tara Latif is recognized.
I would also like to extend my deepest appreciation to the only state university in the Philippines whose purpose is really for the Filipino, for the Moro and the Filipino to be united as one, and to have a meaningful, peaceful society that will be considered truly of our own. And that is the purpose why the MSU was created. And I am also an alumni of MSU because I studied there in high school. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I wish to be a part of the co-author.
Accepted, Mr. Speaker.
Accepted daw.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, there is a standing motion to open the period of amendment.
There's now a motion to open the period of amendments. There any second? Duly seconded. Is there any objection? Period of amendments is motion is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move to close the period of amendment.
There is now a motion to close the period of amendments. Is there any duly seconded? Is there any objection? Chair hears none. Same is hereby approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the approval of proposed resolution.
There is now a motion to approve the proposed resolution.
Second.
Duly
Subject to
seconded.
style, Mr. Speaker.
Subject to style. Is there any duly seconded? Is there any objection? Chair hears none. Same is hereby approved.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we proceed to proposed resolution number 500, a resolution commending the Senate of the Philippines, its Committee on Local Government and its Majority Floor Leader for shepherding the process for the enactment of Senate Bill 2214 and for having the same approved on second reading. Author Mohagir Emikbal and Attorney Raisa S. Jajuri. Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of interpellation on this particular.
There is now a motion to open the period of interpellation and debate. Is there any second?
Second, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair,
There
may I manifest, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
It's just an observation.
Before
Mr. Chair.
we rule on the motion first.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
There is a motion to open the period of interpellation.
There is a motion to open the period of interpellation and debate, which was duly seconded. Is there any objection? Unless that is an objection, Omar.
This is one objection, actually, Mr. Chair.
So you object?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes.
Suspension may I call for a suspension of one minute?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Hindi ba yan premature?
lang, Mr. Speaker. Kung tayo ay may commending dito sa third and final reading sa both houses, Mr. Speaker, ay sa paningin ko po ay wala na pong kumbaga ay nandyan na, natapos na. So itong resolution na ito, Mr. Speaker, ay pag-encourage, no, at maramdaman ng both houses na tayo dito sa Parliament ay nag-aabang at natutuwa sa kanilang action, Mr. Speaker. Kung natapos na ito, Mr. Speaker, wala na tayong action na dapat na ipakita sa kanila kasi naaprubahan na nila, Mr. Speaker. It's a mere of pagpapasalamat, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, may I
go back,
respond?
Deputy Speaker Omar?
Yes,
Can
Mr. Speaker.
Can we just to shorten this? Can you just withdraw that and then we give you the floor to interpolate so that in the period of interpolation and debate we can already determine whether to push through with this as intended by the author or to differ if they so agree.
Mr. Speaker, it is precisely in the period of interpellation that I am worried because we will be opening up questions that probably has relation to the process in the lower house and in the Senate. It goes into the I have no argument as to the substance of this resolution, but it could be that certain questions may be thrown out as in relation to the processes in both chambers of Congress. It could ask so many questions that are involved in the legislative process, such as but not limited to the issue on the certification of the president that could be asked during the period of interpellation. We do not want that to be tackled right now because we might be preempting actions we are hopeful of, and we might also be preempting actions that we are hoping against also. It is precisely in the period of interpellation that these might be brought out, and we do not I do not want to preempt anyone. I do not want to I mean, it is my position that this could preempt issues that we are avoiding to discuss. That yan lang po ang akin, Mr. Speaker. If the good majority floor leader will insist on opening up the period of interpellation, Mr. Speaker, I will not withdraw my objection, but I will not pursue it, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So we now open the period of interpellation. Majority Leader.
Yes, very respectful.
We note the objection of the Deputy Speaker. We will cross the bridge when we get there. MP Raisa, Minister Raisa Jajuri is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. We are ready, Mr. Speaker, for any questions, any question that may be asked by other members of the Parliament.
MP Majority Leader.
We respectfully recognize MP Engineer Baintan Ampatuan.
MP Engineer Baintan Ampatuan is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. At the outset, I would like to manifest that I'll be one of the co-authors of this resolution. I fully support the resolution. However, Mr. Speaker, I would like to seek some clarificatory questions if the good proponent would like to answer.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, the resolution particularly mentions the majority floor leader and the Committee on the Local Government. We are commending them for shepherding the Senate Bill 2214. Mr. Speaker, isn't it that the whole institution supposed to be, is the one supposed to be, we are commending as an institution, BTA as an institution to another institution, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we are also commending the Senate as an institution, but particularly we make mention of the Committee on Local Government and the Majority Floor Leader because they were directly involved in the whole process of putting the bill together, coming from two bills. These were consolidated in the level of the committee after several hearings, and the committee report was presented to the plenary for deliberation. So as you can read, Mr. Speaker, the resolution the commendation is also for the shepherding. It's really about the process of ensuring that this bill is presented to the Senate members and that it reaches the second reading towards its enactment. So that is the intention, Mr. Speaker. While we commend the whole of the Senate as an institution for approving it on second reading, we're also commending the officials and the mechanisms that brought the bill to that point, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the answer and to the good proponent. My follow-up question, Mr. Speaker, is just a very practical situation, Mr. Speaker. If someone from any provincial government would like to commend any of the members or a particular committee for that matter in the BTA, what would be the reaction of the Speaker or the Senate President in that case, Mr. Speaker, in this particular case, Mr. Speaker? My apprehension, Mr. Speaker, is this might create some, baka sasama yung loob ng iba na hindi na-mention doon sa resolution. Just an apprehension, Mr. Speaker. My second question, Mr. Speaker, and this will be the last because I know that meron ding tanong yung iba. My second question, Mr. Speaker, is are we going to extend the same resolution to the lower house?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I cannot speculate on that. We do not know yet the fate of the bill that is pending with the House of Representatives. And if that bill reaches the same stage as Senate Bill 2214, any member of the Parliament who wishes to commend the House of Representatives may do so, I believe, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Those are my thoughts about this proposed resolution, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more interpellation?
MP Eddie Ali to be followed by MP Ali Bisaki.
MP Eddie Ali is
To be followed by
recognized.
MP Eddie.
MP Eddie Ali is recognized to be followed by MP Ali Sangki. Ali
Thank you,
Sangki
Mr.
ba?
Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Majority Floor Leader. The resolution is not only timely for us to act on this. I think we have to approve this resolution. Except that since the action of the Mr. Speaker, since the action of the approval of Senate Bill 2214 is a collegial approval, can we not, the commendation is to the entire Senate of the Philippines. We may mention the other committees, the other committees which are involved in coming up with the Senate Bill 2214, because it is not this is not, I think, a proposal of one committee, but I think there are 2 or 3 committees in the Senate that came up with the consolidated bill and presented to the Senate, Mr. Speaker.
But on the matter of the committees that were in charge, or the committee that was in charge of this bill, I believe in the Senate it was just the Committee on Local Government, but in the House there were three committees. There are three committees that are discussing it and will be submitting a report, a joint report to the plenary. But for the Senate, our understanding is that it is really the Committee on Local Government under the leadership of Senator Francis Tolentino.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Speaker. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, because I saw the apprehension, I see the apprehension of Brother MP, Deputy Speaker Omar, on the possible reaction of the lower house. Mr. Speaker, are we aware, or are you aware, that there is already a substitute bill in the lower house, at a substitute bill to the House Bill number 8116, 8117, 8161, 822, and 8277. Are you aware of
Yes,
this, Mr. Speaker?
That is the current situation. The three committees met today, and I think they've arrived at a decision regarding the bills that were presented to them, and on the TWG report presented to the three committees, and they've arrived at a decision.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just again for the information of the others, there are three committees in the House of Representatives: the Suffrage and Electoral Committee, Reforms, Muslim Affairs, and Peace, Reconciliation, and Unity Committee. Nagbutuhan na po sila, no? Doon po sa Suffrage and Electoral Reforms, affirmative vote 14, dissenting vote is only 1, abstain is 0. Sa Muslim Affairs po, yes vote 7, no, dissenting vote 3. Then sa Reconciliation po, Peace, Reconciliation, and Unity Committee, affirmative vote 8, dissenting votes is 0, abstain is 0. Kung titingnan po natin, Mr. Speaker, doon po sa committee level and coming up with the substitute bill, parang makikita mo po is unanimous, ano na po yung unanimous ang three committees sa lower house. So this resolution that we have today, Mr. Speaker, hindi po ito para sa akin, no, at my end. Hindi po ito, this will not affect the reaction of the House, because in fact, they have already made, at the committee level, they have already made resolution, they have already made decision, and in fact, positive po, no, yung sa resolution nila po sa extension ng Bangsamoro Transition Authority, Mr. Speaker. With the permission, Mr. Speaker, of the main authors, I just would like to be included, no, as co-author of this resolution, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we accept the offer to co-author the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's all.
MP Ali Sanki, Mr. Speaker.
MP Ali Sanki is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I can discern from the proponent of this resolution that our discussion here really is the sharing of ideas for us to come out with an output that is shared by all. And I can discern from the proponent that at this early, when the bill to extend the transition period is not yet finished, I think maganda po yung idea na at this early stage, nagpapasalamat na tayo. But I would like to propose an idea that with this resolution...
Propose the question. I would suggest to the gentleman to now propose the question. Interpellation and debate.
Yeah, because I was raising my hand earlier and I was overtaken by the period where we are now in the interpellation.
Sige, sige. Go ahead for the question. Your question.
I'm not questioning, actually, I'm sharing the idea, but I'm further enriching the idea because it appears that.
So that is not a question.
Yes, it's not a question. We are enriching the resolution to thank the Senate. But it appears that we are already, the Senate is only in the second reading, not yet approved. So at this early, to encourage them to fast track the immediate approval of the extension bill is to commend them already. But it appears that it is not only the Senate, but it is also the lower house. So I suppose that we can have a one resolution addressed to this to legislative to bodies. If the proponent will agree to that idea, please consider me as one
At
of
the
proponent.
proper time, at the period of amendment.
And I am already advancing, dear Mr. Speaker, as we are now also advancing our thanks to the Senate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
MP Ali
MP
Sangki.
Don Loong and MP Aida Silongan. MP Don Loong muna.
And MP Susana also.
Thank
Ayan.
you
MP
very
Susana.
much, Mr. Speaker.
MP
Thank you
Don
very
Long
much.
is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you very much, Mr. Majority Leader. I also agree to the intention of the resolution and also wish to be co-author. But I first have some clarificatory questions to the proponent, Minister de Jure. The resolve clause states, well, in particular, the Senate President, the Chairman of the Committee on Local Government, as well as the Majority Floor Leader. I am not privy to the directly to the Senate, but perhaps is there no one else that that was key in shepherding the process that may need to be mentioned that might indirectly be affected if they were not mentioned?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I would like to state at the outset that there is no intention to exclude anyone. The purpose of mentioning specific officers or a committee in the Senate is to highlight the whole process of enacting a law and for bringing the original bills to the second reading. That is the reason why we mentioned the Committee on Local Government. Of course, we mentioned the authors because there would be no bill if there were no one who would there was no one who would file a bill in the Senate. And then the committee, because that's where the deliberations first happened and a committee report was issued. We mentioned the Majority Floor Leader because he's the one who traffics the discussion and also gives direction towards the the achievement of a task. In this case, the approval of a bill on second reading. We would want to thank each and every senator, even those who voted no, I guess, for participating in the discussion and raising issues that may be very important for us, even as the Bangsamoro Transition Authority and the public. But as I mentioned earlier, the intention was really to highlight the process, not really even the result, the voting and the result of the voting. So yun po ang intention, Mr. Speaker. But I will yield to proposals. But I just want to manifest that that is the intention. It's really about the process of bringing the bill from nothing to a bill that has passed second reading. And we highlighted the steps towards that and those who were directly and officially involved in that whole process. Mr. Speaker.
MP Don.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree that there is urgency that we may have to acknowledge the efforts on this second reading so that there will be more motivation for the third and final reading. But just to raise the issue of some of those with a little bit of hesitation, because some affirmative actions or even interventions can have unintended consequences. And one of these is the usual, even for example, remember when the Bangsamoro Parliament wanted to acknowledge Bangsamoro heroes, the challenge there is if you, by acknowledging specific heroes, we also sometimes hurt the feelings of those who are left unacknowledged. So again, just for final clarificatory question, Mr. Speaker, this is directed to the proponent and to those who know the process firsthand, is as long as those who may also have been vital in shepherding the process will not feel unacknowledged with this resolution, then I signify my intention to co-author. With that caveat that I do hope that those who have personally observed the shepherding of the process knows anyway that I think the senators are quite very matured enough on that aspect. But again, I do hope that those who were not mentioned in the resolution will see that it is the process that is being highlighted, and that I do hope that there is no key senator there who helped shepherd who would have wanted to be acknowledged. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, MP Latif.
Yes. MP.
Latif, Mr. Speaker. MP Latif.
Maysara Latif is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I am also expressing my co-authorship. However, Mr. Speaker, upon hearing also some ideas and reservations from our colleagues, I am also apprehensive, Mr. Speaker, because it is a collective action on the part of the Senate of the Philippines to push forward and pass on its second reading the approval of Senate Bill 2214. So maybe, Mr. Speaker, knowing them as senators, senators are really of national stature. They contribute a lot to the discussion and the discourse in a national arena. And if they hear us only thanking a few of their colleagues and not the collective body itself, that probably would not dwell well on their, psyche, because probably they would have thoughts that so our collective action is now relegated into individual merit. So that's the Committee on the, Local Government and the shepherding of the majority floor leader, when in fact this is a collective action on the part of the Senate. So maybe, Mr. Speaker, we should also think about that when we pass this resolution. But earlier I manifested my co-authorship. However, Mr. Speaker, I wish to reiterate that just like the Parliament is a collective action of members of the Parliament, so we have to be very careful because we still have the third reading. We have to cross pa one more bridge before we really go, kasi baka ma-hurt natin yung ibang sentiment and sasabihin nila, nagpasalamat kayo dun sa iba, pero sa amin hindi. So baka po hindi makatulong, makasama ng konti. Yun lang po, kasi ang mga tao po ay made up of emotions. So ang human beings are driven by emotions. So baka dito manaeg emotions po. Meron pa po tayo isang tatawarin na bridge bago po tayo magpasalamat. Yun lang po, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, may I respond?
Yes, MP Raisa Jajuri.
Yes, I mentioned earlier that we are ready to yield to any amendments that other members of the Parliament may want to introduce in the language. So
Okay.
perhaps a whereas clause that would capture the role of other members of the Senate can also be included during the period of amendment that can be introduced, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Majority Leader.
Yes, MP Anayatin.
MP Susana Anayatin is recognized. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree, Mr. Speaker, that we are recognizing the process. But we must also recognize the contents because the process, as said, is as important as the content. Mr. Speaker, we all watched the process of how this bill was deliberated in the Senate. And there were personalities that really navigated and helped to arrive, for the bill to arrive at this status of being approved in second reading. So I agree with MP Don Loong and MP Maysara Latif that we must also give recognition where it is due. For example, the minority floor leader, Senator Trilon, is played a very significant role in the navigation of the bill where it is now. So, Mr. Speaker, let us also consider the role played by the minority leader in the second stage of the bill where it is now. Mr. Speaker.
Do you have a response to that?
Yes, the same response as I expressed earlier, Mr. Speaker. We're willing to yield to any amendment that other members of the Parliament may want to introduce, highlighting certain personalities or process or the whole of the Senate, which I believe is already here. But if there's language that will highlight that, we are willing to accept amendments, Mr. Speaker.
Do you have further, MP Anayatin?
That's all for now, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Majority Leader?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move to close the period of interpellation and debate. Ma'am Aida, MP Aida Silongan.
The lady from Maguindanao, MP Sulongan, is recognized.
Yes. First of all, I would like to signify my interest to join the co-authorship of this resolution. And at the same time, in support to idea of my two ladies after yung dalawang nagsunod, si Maysara at saka si Ma'am Anayatin, iwasan natin na magkaroon tayo ng kasi mayroon pa tayong third reading. So baka maayos na itong second reading, sa third reading ano tayo doon sa kung meron tayong hindi ma-mention. It's mas better siguro na gawin na lang nating general yung the whole chamber na lang ang appreciate natin pareho sa House of Representatives at saka sa Senate. Dahil natapos naman din ang second reading nung dalawa. Although yung sa kabila committee, pero at least doon na rin yan patutungo. So, yun lang din ang gusto kong mangyari na wala tayong masaktan para tuloy-tuloy na yung magandang resulta ng extension ng BTA. Salamat.
Manifestation noted.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I hope the MPs who are making manifestations regarding the apparent exclusion of certain personalities are already writing the proposed language for inclusion in the resolution, Mr. Speaker.
Noted.
Mr. Speaker, I move to close the period of interpellation and debate.
If there are no more questions, there's now a motion to close the period of interpellation and debate. Is there any second?
Second.
Duly seconded. Is there any objection? Chair hears none, same is hereby approved.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of amendment.
There's a motion to open the period of amendments. Is there any second? Duly seconded. Is there any objection? Chair hears none, same is hereby approved. Period of amendments now open.
Any, maybe any MPs would like to, 1 minute suspension, Mr. Speaker, so that they can formulate.
And then we will ask the secretary to flash the body, the contents, whereas
Yes.
this
1 minute suspension, Mr. Speaker.
last ang title. If you have amendments sa body, doon na muna. Last
Yes.
part to be amended is the title. 1 minute, ilang minutes
1 minute
suspension?
suspension.
1 long minute suspension.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. May we request the member of the parliament to
We are ready. Session resume.
May we
Majority Floor Leader.
May we respectfully request MP Baintan ng Patuan, Mr. Speaker.
Sino?
Baintan ng Patuan.
Si Baintan.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Parang si
Engineer
May
Baintan.
Sara narinig ko sa'yo. May we recognize MP Baintan ang Patuan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This is proposed amendment, two additional whereas and amendment on the final clause and with the title.
Mauna muna sa body. Sige, saan banda dyan ng amendment?
We insert another whereas after the whereas on May 20, 2021. There. Whereas the Committee on Local Government, the majority floor leader, a majority and minority floor leaders, under the able leadership of Senate President Vicente Tito C. Soto, and Tito C. Soto, whereas the Committee on Local Government, the majority and minority floor leaders, under the able leadership of Senate President Vicente Tito C. Soto, collectively contributed to the fruitful deliberations of House Bill 2214. Kung may proposed amendment kayo, later na. This is just to spur the discussion, Mr. Speaker. Another whereas is after the whereas on August 25. Whereas the Bangsamoro government understands that this is still an ongoing process towards the enactment of a law extending the transition period.
And still an ongoing.
Still an ongoing process towards the enactment of a law extending the transition period. Then, period. Semicolon. Semicolon. Then, be it resolved, as it hereby resolved by the Bangsamoro Parliament to commend the Senate of the Philippines. Tapos, delete mo na yung
under the
able leadership kasi uulit lang tayo.
Deleted na.
Hanggang sa Subiri. Then, copy the same as the title. That's my proposed amendment, Mr. Speaker, unless baka may pwedeng mag-improve.
Yung two original authors from the chair, tanong ko lang ba, yung two original authors, Coco Pimentel and Gordon, na-mention na lang sa body, nabasa ko.
Na-mention siya sa yung proseso. Nandun na-mention yung names nila.
So, hindi na rin isasama sa conclusion.
But I think we need to put the name of the majority and minority leaders, their specific name. Kasi yung kay Senator Pimentel, na-mention yung name. Senator Gordon was also mentioned. So we need to put the names of Majority Floor Leader Senator Juan Miguel Mix F. Subiri and the Minority Leader Senator Franklin Drilon.
Tapos na? Tapos na? What is the pleasure of the principal sponsor, author?
Essentially, Mr. Speaker, we are amenable to the amendments. We
Accepted.
accept. Maybe subject to style.
Amendments accepted subject to style.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Any more amendments?
Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Yes, may we respectfully request MP Maysara Latif.
Sino?
Maysara Latif.
Maysara Latif, and then to be followed by MP Eddie
Eddie
Ali.
Ali.
MP
Yes, Mr.
Maysara is
Speaker.
recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My amendment is very simple. Just a resolution commending the Senate of the Republic of the Philippines for approving on second reading Senate Bill number 2214 entitled An Act Resetting the First Regular Elections in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, amending for that purpose Section 13, Article 16 of RA 11054, otherwise known as the Organic Law for the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. This, Mr. Speaker, is the title of Senate Bill 2214. So because if you just mention it as Senate Bill 2214 for future reference, it would really makes more sense if we mention what the bill is all about. So it's about the it's extension of the BTA period. So that's my amendment, Mr. Speaker, if the proponent is amenable.
What is the reply of the principal author? Do you accept or not?
Well, Mr. Speaker, since we are taking out the names of the committee and the role of the majority floor leader, which were mentioned in the original version,
Formulation.
to ensure that we are highlighting the shepherding, the process, rather than the bill itself or the content of Senate Bill 2214. But since we took that out, I am amenable to changing the title as proposed by MP Latif, Mr. Speaker.
Accepted.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
And proposed amendments of MP Latif is accepted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
MP Eddie Ali.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My amendment on the title is simply,
Wala ka ng amendment sa body, wala na.
Hindi, meron pa po.
Mauna sa body, last sa title.
Okay, sige po. I think na nasabi ko na po doon yung amendment na yon. That is after, well, as on May 20, 2021, nakalagay po, well, as the chairman of its Committee on Local Government, Senator Francis Tolentino, and its Majority Floor Leader, Senator Juan Miguel Mig Subiri, shepherded the process for the approval on second reading, Senate Bill 2214. Nakalagay po, nasabi ko na po yun kanina sa Secretariat.
Principal Author.
Mr. Speaker, which part of the bill will that appear?
Doon po after ng ano po, that is before, well, as on August 25, 2021.
Before.
Yeah.
Before August 25, whereas on August 25.
Kasi po doon sa naunang whereas, nasabi po natin doon ang whereas on May 20, 2021, the Senate Committee on Local Government consolidated the above mentioned bills into Senate Bill number 2214, resetting the first regular election in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, Muslim Mindanao to 2025. At ang point ko po, bakit dapat ilagay po yon, dahil sila po ang gumawa ng kung sa gamit po ng principal authors, they were the one who shepherded the approval on second reading of Senate Bill number 2214. That's why I mentioned it there. Before the conclusive, be it resolved.
Mr. Speaker, may I comment?
Yes, the principal author.
May I request the Secretariat to go back to the proposed new whereas as introduced by, because I think it also mentions the names of the Senate, I think the committee chair. Can we go back to that? Yun na. So there's mention of the Senate President, and the proposal earlier was to include the names of Senator Miguel Mig Subiri as Majority Floor Leader and Minority Floor Leader Franklin Drilon. And maybe we can just include the name of the Chair of the Committee on Local Government in the same whereas clause.
I yield, Mr. Speaker. Since Sister MP Baintan, I think it was MP Baintan who suggested the amendment. And again, I would appreciate if the name of the chairman, the chairman of the local government committee be included, Mr. Speaker. Para mas kompleto po, tama po yan.
So we have to merge these two.
Yeah,
Kasi,
yeah.
Parang pareho lang sila.
Yeah, okay.
So whereas the Committee on Local Government chaired by
by
Senator Francis Tol and Valentino, the majority floor leader, Senator Juan Miguel Mix F. Subiri, the minority floor leader, Franklin Drilon, Franklin M. Drilon, okay, para the leadership chair. And maybe under the stewardship of Senate President Vicente, and then quote unquote Tito. Yes. Yung sa before sir ng Committee on Local Government. Wala na. It's gone. Sorry. There's a proposal to change leadership to stewardship under the able stewardship of Senate President. Stewardship. ST.
Okay. I just had a talk with Sister MP Baintan. He agreed to the amendment or the change from leadership to stewardship.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, so I guess the highlighted portion in blue is the final or the merge or the combined version.
Yes, Mr. Speaker,
as
we agree.
proposed by MP Baintan.
Then the next amendment, Mr. Speaker, is on the title.
We leave that and go to the title, MPA Ali.
Yeah. I think I have also requested the secretariat to encode already my suggested amendment. It was simple and almost similar to the suggestion of MP Maysara Latif, no? Except that MP Maysara mentioned or included the title of the Senate Bill 2214. I think that is only I think that is the only difference with my suggested amendment. Mr. Speaker.
So there are three versions, three or two? Well, two proposed amendments now on the title, or three. So can we look at the three versions?
Three versions of the proposed amendments for the title.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
And their corresponding name of the MPs that propose it. Please flash the screen.
Except that the first one, Mr. Speaker, also highlights the process itself. The second and third is just really a matter of style on whether you put the title of Senate Bill 2214 or not. But for the first version or proposed amendment, it also highlights not only the approval on second reading of Senate Bill 2214, but the whole process of getting to that point where you have a bill approved on second reading.
Mr. Speaker, if it is okay with the
MP
other members of the Parliament who suggested for the amendment on the title, I would like, Mr. Speaker, to allow the proponent to make the changes subject to style, Mr. Speaker, incorporating if I the way I see it, halos pareho lang naman yung tatlo. So I move, Mr. Speaker, for the consolidation of the title subject to style.
Second the motion.
Mr. Speaker.
Motion to close.
Majority Leader.
Yes, there is a move to close the period of amendment, Mr. Speaker.
There's now a motion to close the period of amendments. Duly seconded.
Second.
Chair hears none. Same is hereby approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move approval of proposed resolution number 500 subject to style, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to
Second.
approve the proposed
Second.
resolution 500 subject to style. Duly seconded. Is there any objection? Chair hears none. Same is hereby approved.
Second.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the adjournment of this session until next month, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to
Second.
adjourn until next month, September 2021.
Second.
The motion is approved. Wala na, you don't
Congrats,
need-
everyone.
Congrats. Ay,
Congrats, Manila
Juan,
na tayo.
almost